Allow me to blow your mind literally with an unreleased layer 1 cryptocurrency that I believe will perform extremely well in the upcoming 2025 bull market, and quite honestly guys, well and truly beyond. Now the project's name is Sui, and I'll be honest, there's not often a time in crypto where I get a project coming across my desk that is either unreleased, existing in a micro cap, or just brand new that I go, wow, this is awesome. But Sui is an exception to that. This came across my desk and I just had to make this video. I was literally blown away. And the fact that this project isn't even released yet allows us to have an edge over most people and hopefully to make some pretty good profits. All right, so let me introduce you to Sui very briefly. If you guys like this video and you want to know more about Sui and want me to explain it in more depth, let me know because I can definitely make that happen, okay? So Sui is a cryptocurrency. It's a layer 1 network, as I said, currently unreleased, meaning right now it's on testnet, not mainnet, and it runs from a different type of DLT, right? Not a typical blockchain DLT. It runs from a DAG, and more specifically, it's a modified type of DAG. Now, the modification is called Bullshark. I know it's a weird name, right? But essentially, Bullshark, what it does is splits the consensus process up into two separate sections, right? It gets the transactions themselves and classifies them as either complex or simple. Now, a complex transaction is a transaction that is processed through the regular Byzantine fault tolerant system, and I think I'm already losing some of you guys, so let me be very brief with it. Essentially, it's any transaction that needs to kind of interact with any account other than the sender's account. So that might be interacting with the DeFi application or anything that relates to sending, my tokens to you, for example. That has to obviously be processed through the whole network and propagated to every single validator, right? Now, normally that's the standard for every transaction, right? But that does tend to slow the network down, right? Other networks, Bitcoin, Ethereum, pretty much every other network you can pick and choose right now currently does that, okay? And it's got a big issue when it comes to transaction speed, finality, and a few other issues as well, right? Including storage. But what Sui actually does is then it goes, well, we're going to have simple transactions as well that are separate, that runs through a different consensus sort of algorithm. It's similar, but different. And what it essentially does is just, it's any transaction that occurs from the actual user itself. So if I was to, like mint an NFT, for example, or if I was to transfer any tokens between my own account, not needing to interact with anyone else, that's a simple transaction and it's bypassed through, instead of being processed through the whole entire network, okay? Again, preventing it from slowing down and being congested. Now, it's pretty unique, right? It's actually novel to Sui, which is what you want to hear, right? We do hear about it sometimes, a novel architecture, but this truly is an awesome improvement, right? Now, Sui is also a proof-of-stake network. Technically, it's a delegated proof-of-stake network. So some of you, I know, would have reservations with that, and that's okay. Everyone likes different things. But essentially, the really cool thing is why I like Sui is that it's horizontally scalable, right? So the more nodes you add to the network, the more nodes that join. It doesn't matter if it's 1 node, 10 nodes, 100 nodes, 1,000 nodes, 100,000 nodes. Every time a node joins a network, it scales, right? It gets better and better and better. And Sui has announced it's infinitely scalable, okay? So it will never cap out at a certain threshold, which is incredible, right? So infinite TPS. Now, one thing they haven't really mentioned TPS on the actual website itself, which might seem concerning to some people. They've given some figures relating to one particular node or how many cores potentially could create a certain amount of TPS. But I'm not comfortable enough right now to say anything before mainnet is released and we can kind of see it in action, okay? Now, also, transaction fees, they're minute. They're pretty much fractions of a cent, okay? And get this, finality rather, is instant. So as soon as you post the transaction to the network, no matter what that is, it is instantly processed, which is just something you won't find even in current systems like Visa and MasterCard, taking sometimes days to process and finalize, okay? So that's a really cool feature I like, and it's definitely going to be like a foundational aspect of Web3, right? So let's move on now. The smart contract programming language on the network was inspired and actually created from Facebook's It was called Move, right? And this is something we're going to look at in just a second. A lot of the team that helped create Sui are Meta or Facebook native. They came over from Facebook, and that kind of, and a lot of them actually, including one of the CEOs, or the co-founders rather, he was actually head of a certain section that kind of looks after the programming languages, right? So nevertheless, the language on the network is called Sui Move, okay? So it's just a variation of Facebook's Move. Now, I'm guessing most of you guys aren't familiar with Move. Neither am I, but suffice to say, we'll see how it's going to play out, okay? Now, the really cool thing about Sui Move, though, is that it's correct by construction. This is something also similar in Casper's protocol as well, meaning that the code itself is error-prone. It's kind of simpler for developers to spot, errors in the actual code itself, so it's easily verifiable. And the system itself kind of runs a few checks to make sure that bugs like that could potentially lose developers hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars are weeded out before they kind of launch any sort of smart contract, okay? So with that, it's also easy to develop on, right? So again, this is all like sort of, I guess you could say it's novel stuff, okay? So there's no like way I can indicate, yes, this is provable with X project already. So just keep that in mind, guys. A lot of this stuff is theoretical. Lots of changes can happen between mainnet and testnet, or testnet and mainnet rather. So understand that things might slightly change, and sometimes, and I'm not saying this about Sui, but just full disclosure for you guys, sometimes these amazing features do get dulled down a bit, and errors can occur when it does launch on mainnet. So while there's all these amazing features, just keep in mind that things can change, okay? Now, the parent company that I wanted to talk about to you very quickly that created, it's not really a parent company, it's more like the incubator of Sui, is called Myston Labs. Now, Myston also, while creating Sui, also created the Sui Move algorithm. Now, they've kind of split these two into two different things, and that's because I believe that they'll probably license out the Sui Move language if it's not already available for anyone to kind of adopt. Obviously, if it proves to be a very efficient and scalable language, people are going to want to buy that up, okay? And different networks are going to want to use it, obviously. So one thing I wanted to also mention before we move into some more of the statistics is that storage is actually on-chain. One thing you'll find with most cryptocurrencies is that they rely on third parties to kind of offload their storage, because as we see with Ethereum, Bitcoin, as these immutable ledgers start stacking up more and more transactions, it clogs the network up, causing issues, maybe not now, but definitely in 5, 10, 15, maybe even 25 years' time. And then they're going to have to find a solution to all these different issues, okay? So storage is a not really sexy topic to talk about, but it's probably one of the most important to talk about. People just tend to kick it down the road, you know what I mean? Metaphorically, kick that can down the road and forget about it, okay? So don't worry, Sui actually solves that itself, and it's pretty incredible, really, that the fact that they're able to incorporate all these different amazing features that are typically bound to the scalability trilemma, or just projects can't seem to work around. Okay, so with that being said, guys, let's just jump into some of the most important aspects. All right, so I wanted to say for the record, as you can see on CoinMarketCap, it is unreleased, just if any of you guys were doubting me, and I would suspect the mainnet, from what I've heard, should be out in the next month or two, okay? So I'm going to show you how to actually take advantage of this in just a second. Now, one metric I would like to take your attention to is the watch list, okay? As we can see here, guys, 19,000 watches for an unreleased project. That is quite impressive. Normally, it's around 5,000 or less, okay? So we'll get to more of those metrics in just a second. Now, the one thing I want to say is the website, while it doesn't have all the information you typically want to see, finality, transaction fee costs, scalability, TPS, blah, 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 ecosystem, remember, well, it does have the ecosystem up here, but not what you'd expect. It's unreleased. It's not on mainnet just yet, guys. This normally takes time to develop, just like you'd find with any other protocol currently out there, okay? Remember, they're on testnet, they're on DAppNet, they're just testing things through to make sure mainnet is as simple as possible, so they don't bring up any numbers and things like that, but that will come out when mainnet is released and probably tested after a while, okay? But so far, I like the website. They're doing a great job. Now, the token itself, the Sui token, can be used in 5 different ways. Most of them are pretty standard in most protocols, right? So it's the native token on the asset, if you want to even call that an aspect or a component. Gas fees, pretty simple, right? To use dApps and so on and so forth to pay transaction fees. There is gas involved. Storage for funds. So as I mentioned briefly at the last bit there, it's actually used to be able to pay for storage. Okay, so That's not as normal on some protocols, but most protocols, even layer ones that even rely on IPFS or Filecoin, for example, do have fees relating to storage as well in the native token. Proof of stake consensus mechanism actually allows you to stake to validators. Okay, so delegated proof of stake. Most of you guys should know you can delegate your stake to a validator and then earn rewards based on what that validator does. Okay, so that's just like DPoS, and then on-chain voting as well for governance proposals. So pretty standard sort of situation here for the SUI token. But just like any native token to a network, you will find that these will increase over time. So starting off the gate, that is absolutely fine. Okay, nothing to look at there. Now, the SUI token distribution, from what I've been able to see, there is going to be about 10 billion tokens distributed at launch. That's what I read in the Tokenomics Economics white paper. Please correct me if that's changed or I am wrong. And the initial distribution will look as follows. Now, I want to say for the record, I'm not concerned by this. However, I couldn't find a vesting schedule. Typically, the distribution itself means diddly squat unless you know when they're being released and in how much quantity. Is there a cliff involved? Is it a linear sort of expulsion of tokens? We don't really know. Please, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I did have quite an extensive look over the internet. If you're a SUI fan, paste the link down below and I'll pin that at the top of the comment section, okay? Now, as we can see here, the community reserve managed by the SUI Foundation. So I've checked through all of these guys. It's all mentioned here. It's all fine, okay? There's nothing I'm really concerned about. However, while this isn't relating to just SUI, any project that says that they're able to, or they're allocating tokens for specific things, if they're a nefarious company, they're going to use those tokens no matter what, okay? So they can tell us that's what they're used for, but just keep your finger on the pulse always with any of your investments, guys. Now, early contributors, 20%, investors, 14%, Myston Labs, again, that's the parent or the incubator company, 10%. So looking at what I call third-party companies or third-party entities that I typically teach people, which are entities that have the can dump whenever they like, so they have an allocation of tokens, and typically at the cheapest prices with the biggest bags, just like you or I, they can just dump their tokens whenever at a drop of a hat. Those are the ones we need to look at the most, and that's kind of like the early contributors, investors in Myston Labs treasury. Okay, and that makes up about 44% of the total distribution, which is quite high, but it's nothing I'm too concerned about. Again, I can't say for sure until I see the vesting schedule. So right now, my opinion on that is up in the air, all right? But the last and definitely not least is the community access program and app testers, right? This is what I was indicating before, and this is a sort of a way that you guys can get in nice and early and actually earn some SUI tokens if you like the project, right? I'm not going to go over this in this video. I'll leave the link down below, but the SUI token community access program is a way that you as a community supporting SUI can get access to some of their tokens nice and early, okay? Now, next on the list, we're talking about nodes, full nodes and validators. Now, this isn't something that a lot of people are talking about, but it's something I found pretty important because it indicates demand, right? If any of you guys are familiar with the layer 1 flywheel, you know how important this is, all right? So let's have a look at this. The SUI community has come to life. We have received 28,000 validator applications from more than 80 countries. Even if one person decided to submit like 10 applications for 10 validators, guys, we're talking about thousands and thousands of applications here. It's incredible. Also, as we can see, in light of this, we have decided to admit a pool of 500 SUI nodes, or they're pretty much full nodes, effectively creating an opportunity to support 5 times the original target of 100. So initially, SUI decided to have 100 nodes on the network, validating from the get-go from mainnet. Well, now, because the community's kind of come back and said, hey, we want more allocation spots. Well, SUI have upgraded that to 500 based on demand, right? Which is incredible. Most projects out there right now don't have 500 validators validating the network, and they've been operating for years. So they're already off to a very, very good start. And this typically only gets better and better as the network is on mainnet, goes through its, permissioned, public permission, permissionless, blah, 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 until it's a full public permissionless network where anyone can join as a validator, all right? So these things take stages, but it's good to see right off the bat they're starting huge, okay? So Myston Labs, again, these are the incubators of SUI, and also the algorithm, or the language rather, that is used to create smart contracts on the network. These are the minds behind it. Now, I want to say these guys are legit. Let's have a look at Evan, who is the co-founder and CEO. Now, this is going to blow your mind, guys. Now, he's had quite an extensive career. He's worked in very high-profile positions, as we can see here. Director of Engineering, that's what I was talking about before, with the programming languages and runtimes, with the whole Move. Probably he's had a good scope on Move. So yeah, he was at a high position in Facebook. And before that, he was at Apple for 10 years and 3 months, also in senior positions, which is phenomenal. Now, I want to say for the record, what I would suggest to people is anyone can write anything on LinkedIn. I can say that I was a GOAT for 10 years. So, and not a greatest of all time, I'm talking about a physical GOAT. So what you should do rather, is go down to endorsements and have a look at their endorsements and kind of go through here as an indication on, okay, well, this important figure has validated that they worked at a certain place and have certain prerequisites or degrees. It might be education, for example, or it might be specific talents. So it's very important you guys go through that. Also, I have another guy here. He's also from product lead from Meta. Okay, so he worked on Novi. And yeah, so most of the co-founders and Myston Labs team are actually from Meta or have experience from Meta. Okay, now the partners are Myston Labs partners, so they're not direct partners of Sui, but because Myston Labs are only focused on Sui right now, you can pretty much call these partners of Sui. We have some of the more notable names. Well, the most notable name I'm going to mention here is axillar. Now, axillar is a protocol that operates, cross-chain communication, right, interoperability. And it's leveraged by another protocol I love called Moonbeam, and they operate through GMP or general message passing, and that's kind of like an innovation thanks to Polkadot, okay? It's just it's a standard protocol message format that allows these intricate messages and transactions to be processed. They're not really transactions, they're messages that can enact multiple things, like, for example, calling a smart contract, and then from that smart contract call another smart contract, and so on and so forth, all from one message. And that's what axillar facilitates through multiple different cryptocurrencies and networks. And so I think because Sui is actually running from Rust, right? It's all built off Rust. That will allow it to interoperate with axillar through hopefully GMP and just have hopefully an interoperability sort of pathway to Polkadot, which from there it's just going to expand astronomically. Okay, so there's a hell of a lot of potential here. And it's definitely possible, all right? It's great to see there's a partner already in that. Now, one thing I want to close up with is the social media, okay? So Sui has an astronomical amount of followers on Twitter, that being 382,000. So they've had a very strong marketing campaign. I believe they had a couple airdrops maybe. I know that they definitely had one airdrop that definitely would have brought in most people. But regardless of the airdrops, I mean, look at this. They're still getting a hell of a lot of demand, right? Or interest or engagement, right? Look at this, 196,000 views, 20,000 views, 16,000 views, 45,000 views. The list just goes on and on and on. And, you can bot these things, but the fact that they've got this many followers on Twitter, they've got 19,000 people, adding it to their watch list on CoinMarketCap, which again is a lot. And get this, the nail in the coffin, the cherry on top, they have, get this, 600,000 members on Discord, guys. 42,000 online. They have more people online than most cryptocurrencies have, like, actual members, right? So, again, it's important if you're an investor to actually go on to their Telegram or Discord and have a bit of a play around, have a look and see if that really is correct. Now, in saying that, guys, that's going to cover today's video. I've just tried to make this as quick as possible because the video has gone on for quite a lengthy amount of time. If you do want to know more about how the protocol actually works or some of these things more in depth, I'd love to cover it, but I would kind of love to cover it once mainnet's released. We'll have some more data and I can kind of let you know, hey, we've got some downtime or, the programming language itself, the Sui Move, is bringing a hell of a lot of developers onto the protocol, which means, hey, there's some stuff happening here, right? So I think I'd wait off till then, but nevertheless, I want to know your opinions down below. Stay tuned. Add these guys to your watch list. Follow them on Twitter with notifications on. When they launch their mainnet, jump on it and check the link in the description for this right here because you hopefully would want to have some tokens up your belt, okay, as soon as possible. With that said, all, thank you so much for watching this video. Appreciate you so much. And until next time, take care.